Well, hello there, and welcome to the House of Hammer. Entree, come on in, wipe your feet, and try your best to ignore the smell. So, we are into 1957, but core blimey governor, we weren't exactly in 1956 for very long, were we? Just 2 films were released by Hammer in that particular year, and only 3 were unleashed in 57. Today's film of The Steel Bayonet being the middle child of this peculiar set of triplets. 1958, however, gives us no less than 7 movies, so don't think we are racing through the years just yet. If you didn't already know, although after hearing the title I'm not sure how that would be possible, The Steel Bayonet is a war film. That's quite a trajectory for any film studio, isn't it? We've quite literally gone from radioactive space wibbly to a women's prison, landed in Castle Frankenstein, and now ended up in the battlefields of Tunis. The last landing is somewhat prescient, because I don't know about you, but I was rather unaware of the importance of Tunis, especially where the Brits and World War II were concerned. In fact, we all were. So what did we do? Yes, that's right, we sent our roving reporter Ben out into no man's land to find out more.
Being as I am largely out of touch with contemporary society, I've no idea if it is the case now, but back in my day being some considerable time ago, one was able to give up learning about history at the age of 13 in favour of another subject. And instead of history, I chose geography. And hence am able to remember how oxbow lakes are formed, that the capital of Aruba is Oranjestad, and that continents shift at about the same rate as your fingernails grow. All of which is very useful, as you can imagine. But as Sam Cooke once said, I don't know much about history, or biology, or science books, or indeed the French I took. But all of that is slightly less relevant than the history bit. You'll be relieved to hear that we're finally getting to the point of this rambling preamble. My lack of historical knowledge came to the fore when it was revealed that The Steel Bayonet, a World War II action drama, was set in Tunisia. My understanding of what went on in North Africa during the Second World War was non-existent. I mean, I knew war had raged on several continents. The clue is in the World War bit, but my understanding of exactly what went on where is somewhat lacking. But as a data professional, I can utilise the wonders of the information age and find out what did happen like. Sort of. In abridged format. As cobbled together by an unqualified amateur. So with those disclaimers ringing in your ears, let's go back in time. Agricultural communities in the humid coastal plains of central Tunisia in 4000 BC were ancestors of today's Berber tribes who inhabited the country at the beginning of recorded history. The city of Carthage was founded in the 9th century. You know, I think we might have gone back a bit far here, so let's go forward in time. Carthage was conquered by Rome in 146 BC. During the Roman period, the area of what is now Tunisia enjoyed a huge development. The economy, mainly during the empire, boomed. Tunisia was the granary of the empire, and the area produced 1 million tons of cereals each year, and additional crops included beans, figs, grapes, and other fruits. I think we'll go forward a bit further in time. Sometime between the second half of the 7th century and the early part of the 8th century, Arab-Muslim conquest occurred in the region. After conquering Cairo, the Fatimids abandoned Tunisia and parts of eastern Algeria to the local Zirids. The Almoravids ruled over the whole of Tunisia until they were crushed by the Almohad troops in 1207. After this success, the Almohads installed Walid Abu Hafs as a governor of Tunisia. Plague epidemics ravaged Tunisia in 1784, 1796, 18... In 1881, the French invaded Tunisia with an army about 36,000 strong and forced them to agree to the terms of the 1881 Treaty of Bordeaux. Tunisia was officially made a French protectorate. Under this French colonisation, European settlements in the country were actively encouraged. During World War II, see, we got there eventually, French Tunisia was ruled by the collaborationist Vichy government located in metropolitan France. Named after its seat of government, the city of Vichy, Vichy France was the French rump state headed by Marshal Philippe Pétain during World War II. This was what remained of independent France, in inverted commas, after the 1940 armistice with Nazi Germany meant half of it was occupied. The remaining half was responsible for the civil administration of France as well as its colonies. The countries of Morocco, Algeria and Tunisia were all French colonies in northwest Africa, and they were aligned with the Vichy French government. In 1942, the Tunisian campaign began. It was part of the larger North African campaign, which also saw combat in Libya, Egypt, Chad, Algeria and Morocco. This area was strategically important for both the Western Allies and the Axis powers. The Axis powers aimed to deprive the Allies of access to Middle Eastern oil supplies, to secure and increase Axis access to the oil, and to cut off Britain from the material and human resources of its empire in Asia and Africa. In addition, after the disastrous defeat in Western Europe in spring in 1940, the North African campaign offered the Allies the opportunity to open up a new front against the Axis and, after Germany invaded the Soviet Union in June 1941, to ease German pressure on the Eastern Front. The Tunisia campaign marked the first time where British and United States forces were deployed together in combat, and it was the first time during the Second World War that US troops saw action in what are termed European or Mediterranean theatres. Following the arrival of Allied troops in Tunisia, the Vichy French forces agreed to a ceasefire. On the same day as the ceasefire, German forces began landing in Tunisia. It's important to note by this time the Germans and Italians had occupied all of France, ending the pretense of independence that the Vichy government had provided. German troops won the race to occupy the capital Tunis and therefore occupy the country. This led, from November 1942 until May 1943, to a series of battles between the Axis and Allied forces in Tunisia, which would eventually culminate in Allied forces seizing the capital. 6 days later, this led directly to the Axis surrender on the 13th of May 1943, which signalled the end of World War II in Africa. This Allied victory in North Africa destroyed or neutralised nearly 900,000 German and Italian troops, opened a second front against the Axis, permitted the invasion of Sicily on the Italian mainland in the summer of 1943, and removed the Axis threat to the oil fields of the Middle East and to British supply lines to Asia and Africa. It was therefore critically important to the course of World War II. So, to bring you back to our movie, the Steel Bayonet takes place towards the end of the Tunisian campaign, where the German and Italian forces are being pushed back as the Allies advance on Tunis. A company of British infantry are tasked with holding a small farm against an expected last-ditch counterattack from an increasingly desperate enemy. See? It all makes sense now. Like an oxbow lake. In Australia, oxbow lakes are called billabongs.
Our war correspondent, Ben Taylorson. As mentioned by Ben there, the Steel Bayonet opens with a returning ragged group of British soldiers. Battle-weary and in need of some R&R, the chaps are hoping for some much-needed downtime. Sadly, wouldn't you know it, the higher-ups have other ideas, and break the news to Major Gerard, played here by Leo Genn.
I'm sorry to bring into your rest, Gerard. You're taking on this little job for me, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Good man. Now listen carefully. Von Arnim is expected to hit us in this sector during the next 36 hours with at least a division. Right, now I want some guns ranged onto his forward positions for two purposes. First, to break up his attack before he gets going. Second, to support our own show. Now, we haven't enough ammunition for a barrage, and that means directed gunfire. You understand? Every shot must tell.
Yes, sir.
I want an advanced observation post, practically looking down the enemy's throat. You'll command, Gerard. Captain Meade here will take care of the ranging. You can call in a complete regiment, all 24 guns. That's how important it is. And the enemy must not know you are there till he has to. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. One question. What happens when he does know?
Then I shouldn't be surprised if he tries to winkle you out. But it's essential that you hang on. That OP must function. Anything more than a company would be too conspicuous. Anyway, I can't spare it. You'll hold it to the last man in the last round, or until you get orders to pull out. You understand?
Perfectly, sir.
Good man.
Breaking the bad news to the chaps is one thing, accomplishing the mission is another thing entirely.
There it is. There's the ridge. The enemy are there, and we're here. There's some sort of tower in the farmyard. That'll be the observation post. We shall defend it. All clear so far?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. We rendezvous with Captain Meade, it's the gunner officer, at the junction of these tracks. When we get to the farmyard, we dig in. I'll give you further orders then. Any questions?
What if an enemy patrol should come snooping around, sir?
Not one of them must get back. There must be no shooting. They'd hear it a mile off. That means bayonets. How are the men taking it, Sergeant Major?
Not too good, sir. And they don't know by the half.
We head on now to the round table. Joining me as always, and to make sure I don't light my tea kettle at night, are Captain Kev Moore and Brigadier Ben Taylorson.
Can I just start by saying, oh, this isn't Frankenstein?
Yes, you can.
Actually, we can move on immediately to a question. Gentlemen, war, what is it good for?
For this particular film, at least, it's about seeing, I lost count, lads, of how many Hammer alum are on screen in this. It's ridiculous. Practically
wall.
Everyone... Yeah, practically everyone on screen we've seen in something else. So that's what it's good for. Ben, the HCU.
I believe you have a question, Smokey.
I do, and it's just something I was quite curious about. And because our respective shows that we do away from House of Hammer, Kev's and ours and whatnot, we very, very rarely get to talk about war films. I mean, we've never done it for Rated H. I've done one on All the Best Lines. Kev, Amicus, Film Guff. I don't know how many.
Well, bizarrely, we're with Film Guff. I don't know whether you remember, but we were about to start embarking on a whole March season of war films because we'd never covered any war films apart from Dunkirk, and then Russia invaded Ukraine, so we called it off.
Well, for once, good taste prevails on Film Guff. Who knew? But what I was going to ask was though, I just because for me personally and for the listeners, I'm guessing Ben, Kev, are you fans of war films?
I think this feeds into a point that I wanted to make. Am I a fan of war? I don't know, really. I find them very difficult to watch for obvious reasons. But the point I want to make kind of feeds into maybe how I judge this film a little bit harshly on first viewing. Because war films in recent years, and by recent years, I'd kind of say the last 30 years, when anyone makes a war film with any particularly decent budget, they're tending to try and make a statement about war more generally. They're trying to create a piece of art that says, war is bad. Obviously, we've made that point jokingly, but, and here's, a layered, faceted sort of indication of why that is. I think that historically, going back to sort of the 40s, 50s, 60s, war just became the setting for a story. And yeah, all right, obviously the context of the war was important in telling that story, but because there were so many war films and because the people had a real appetite for them and the real atrocities were still fresh in people's minds and they were still thirsty or hungry to know more about them, then you got a lot of films that weren't trying to make those bold artistic statements, and summing up, the nature of war in 120 minutes. They're just saying, here's a thing that happened in the war. And that's kind of what this film is. So when it comes to that type of war film, I'm maybe a little bit less forgiving. And I don't mean that I dismiss them or I don't like them. I just don't really think about in the same way that the way Westerns were churned out every 2 minutes. Whereas now, if someone puts a Western out, because the whole thing involves, a huge amount of budgets and creation of sets and all of this, and because it's become such a beloved genre, a Western that's created in the 21st century attempts to be the Western, very much like war films. It's no coincidence that they're grouped together in HMV,
Yeah, good point. I would say I'm a fan of war films. I'm just thinking about some of the classics, in inverted commas, which are basically boys' own adventure films because they bear little resemblance to World War II at all. Thinking straight away of Where Eagles Dare, for instance, where you've got Clint Eastwood walking around a German castle trying not to speak German because he can't, and Richard Burton speaking Welsh German, which is always wonderful. So I like that kind of ridiculousness of it. That side of it is a bit easier to handle than this particular film, because this film is a film made by veterans of World War II. Most of the cast and the crew are all from that, so they're going at it and doing like a semi-documentary on this, really. And it's in parts quite a tough watch. It's quite surprisingly a tough watch as well. I wasn't expecting it to be as near the knuckle as it can be.
I mean, it's such an odd thing, isn't it, to say if you're a fan of a war film, because
it is, yeah.
As you say, if it's steeped in reality, then that's tragic. It's horrible. I mean, I remember watching the Clint Eastwood double bit. He did Flags of Our Fathers and then the Iwo Jima. So you saw it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, you saw it from both sides, and there are. I know it's a cliche, but there are no winners. It's all horrible, and they're all
friend only to the Undertaker.
He's been waiting on that one. Well done, Edwin.
He has. Well done, mate. Well done. But there is. But I do like war. I'm not an expert on war films, but I do like. I mean, Full Metal Jacket is in my top 10 of all time.
Yep,
it's great, and I adore Dunkirk. I thought it was a Ben and I saw that together at the cinema, and I thought it was a masterpiece.
Yeah, it still makes me weep.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. But
such Harry Styles, Kev.
but there are some I can certainly give or take, and especially when John Wayne comes into the picture.
Oh, good grief! The Green Berets.
The Green Berets, the only pro-Vietnam War movie ever made.
Oh, talk about tone deaf.
Yeah, it's just a little. But I've got to go with Kev here. I didn't expect the Steel Bayonet to be the way it was, and I certainly wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did. But also, something I've just got to say straight off the bat, though, with the Steel Bayonet is thank omnipotent being that this is in black and white. Because if it was in colour, you could not convince me that Aldershot is Tunisia. So, once I was just watching it going, right, yeah, the black and whiteness helps this. Because otherwise, this is Aldershot.
To be fair, there's another reason for it being in black and white as well, because there's quite a lot of bloodshed in this film.
Yeah.
Don't shoot down my idea.
Well, yeah, I know. To be honest,
and watch it die unconvincingly in front of you.
Well, yeah, that's true.
No, to be honest, I really did at no point start thinking, no, this looks a bit too grassy for Tunisia.
It's not enough sand.
No.
Have you noticed that sky? It's not sun up there. It's grey.
I think going back to your thing about tone, ironically, by the sounds of it, the reason I didn't get on with it in the first place, it sounds to be one of the reasons that you two embraced it, because I found it a bit matter of fact. There was no sort of ponderous, reflective loitering on the horrible things that they were asked to do and then forced to do. It was all just kind of, oh, well, we've been told to do this, let's just get on with it. And I guess on my first watch, I sat there thinking, this is all right, but I wish it was 40 minutes longer and we could have had a bit more of such and such sort of, thinking about the horrors to come and him reflecting on the fact that he's just come from the front line and now he's knackered. But it goes back to what I was saying right at the beginning. It's not meant to be that kind of film. It's not meant to be summing up the horrors of war. It's just meant to be these guys have been asked to do something awful. Yeah. And if you really watch it, you see the minutiae as you go. And you're left to make your own kind of judgments about, oh, yeah, by the way, they mentioned in passing that the second in command was so frightened that he puked.
Yeah.
But they don't loiter on it. They just kind of say, oh, it happens. Yeah, exactly. And on they go.
They use a very similar trope in the original All Quiet on the Western Front as well, when someone wets themselves and he just went, don't worry, we've all been there, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But it's very interesting. I'm so glad you brought that up there, because call me whatever you want, but that's exactly the same. That's very true, but it's exactly the same as Saving Private Ryan. It really is. That beginning is Tom Hanks meeting Dennis Farina and him saying, we've got this ridiculous mission for you.
Mm-hmm.
Your men are all knackered. They're all terrified. They just want a bit of R&R, but they're not going to get it. Can you motivate them? That's I was about to say the start of Saving Private Ryan. It's not. It's after the beach invasion. But this is the start of the Steel Bayonet. Yeah. And it's exactly the same. A group of battle-weary soldiers who are being asked to do this ludicrous mission for their uppers, and just going, well, you know what? We've just got to pull our socks up and just do it. And I think the matter-of-factness really helps this film, because there's a scene right at the start when they're given the mission, and the leader, Leo Gen, isn't it? And he just he literally just says, yes sir, yes sir, yes sir. That's all he's doing. It's like a metronome, and I thought that was incredibly clever.
I liked the way that they still have that level of professionalism, even though there's one guy that's really sort of bringing it home and saying, look, we're all knackered, and if I had a union, I'd be onto my rep now. And you're thinking, yeah, because you would, because he's kicking off because he's not even had time to have a bit of a break, and then everybody else just says to him, just swallow it, just get on with it. I mean, for God's sake, Michael Ripper spends most of this film just trying to get a cup of tea.
Yeah.
In fact, he dies moaning about his teapot.
Yep.
He gets a sort of a nasty injury to the groin as well. What a way to go. Groin to death.
Bombed to the groin.
Bombed to the groin.
So let me ask you, Ben, then, did this, it's become a cliche, probably on the bingo card, but did the second viewing helped for you?
Oh, massively. I enjoyed it much more watching it a second time. I really did. Partially because it tempered my expectations of what the film was going to be. Partially because it allowed me, because I knew what the broad strokes were, to pay more attention to the minutiae. I think it was one of those things as well, as I was more in the mood for it, which helps. Which always if we always watch these films more than once to help level that out anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did enjoy. I did come up with a lot of questions about some of the things that occur.
Agreed.
But a story as it is basically a sort of a ragtag platoon of men sent on an impossible mission. It's basically a suicide mission, and how many of them are going to survive is what the story really boils down to. Feats of extraordinary bravery that soft lads like us can only really ever imagine the horrors of.
Yeah.
But no, I did enjoy. I did enjoy it a lot more second time round.
I think it's something that I think is very much to the film's credit is it's very understated. It's an understated way of looking at the heroicism of some of those people. And as you say, the fact that, half of these guys, the war's only been done a decade. Half of these lads were there. Yeah. And that's powerful. And then also returning to what Kev mentioned is that especially with the opening narration, this plays out like a documentary at the start and at the end. It doesn't so much in the middle. They but that's not really important. But what a really good way of centering this film and sort of saying, here's their mission. I mean, they don't mess around. They say, here's your soldiers, here's their mission, here's them doing it, here's the end. I mean, it's literally 3 acts. And
80 minutes, more or less.
Yeah. And it's done, and it's done in a really sensitive and very clever way. And I really liked it for that.
Don't forget, we get that pre-credit sequence where you've just really dragged into it, kicking and screaming, because what a way to open a film. It's just explosion after explosion before you even get credit. And
that
then,
barrage of explosions.
Yeah, it's like, wow. Now, this is how you grab your attention, the audience, not just somebody milling around a country house. And then I actually tried to look up and try and find out who was doing the voice, because it sounds exactly like the guy that did the Movie Tome News. You know the voiceover at the beginning?
Yeah,
It sounds a lot like him, or it was either Movie Tone or Pathé. I can't remember which one, but it sounds very, very like that kind
Very
of
much.
clipped, sort of, here's the news before the cartoon lads, and then on with the film.
I'd actually assumed it was Michael Medwin, to be honest, because it sounds a bit like him as well, but maybe it wasn't.
Yeah, it could be.
Who knows?
Maybe.
So, speaking of him, he's the actor I kind of want to pick up on next, really, because his character is really... Michael Medwin irritated me at first in his first iterations in Hammer films, right? But I liked him in Spaceways, and I liked what he did in this film as well. But his character sort of comes in about a third of the way through the film. He's sort of fresh blood for the platoon. He's an officer who's been knocked down a rank to serve on active duty, and he's kind of comes in as sort of Green Guild. He hasn't seen a day of proper war in his life, and is about to get a very steep learning curve. The one thing I did think was you were meant to dislike him, and then you were meant to sort of follow his journey through, and as he became a more likable character, you were meant to like him. One thing I think was an interesting decision on behalf of the filmmakers, and one that I wonder if they ever considered, was there's a scene about halfway into the film where the Major has to go out into kind of no man's land and take on a sniper one-on-one. He has a machine gun and the sniper has his sniper rifle. And they have a bit of a fight, and the Major shoots him, and that's the end of it. I'd wondered if they'd ever considered him killing off the character at that point, because I think it would have been really interesting if Medwin's character Vernon had to take over the platoon at that point. And I was, when I was watching the film, the first time I fully expected that was what was going to happen. I mean, I know that obviously our lead actor, you're not going to kill him off halfway through the film, probably.
No, but that would have been very Platoon of it, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah. It would have
Berenger killing off Defoe.
Yeah.
Well, I just think it would have been, if the film had been written and produced 30 years later, that's almost certainly what would have happened.
Probably.
But I think actually not doing that did allow, Vernon to have his heroic ending where he comes good, saves a few lives, gets the platoon out at the end. I really liked his arc, and I liked Medwin's performance. I don't know what you two thought.
Agreed. I mean, it's Robert Vaughn in The Magnificent Seven, isn't it? He comes in and he's unlikable, and then he redeems himself right at the end. And he does it in a good way. And also, we should mention from that particular scene of when he does redeem himself, it's done in a very subtle way, in that he is literally asked the simple question of, do you want to stay? And he knows he's going to die. And he just says, yes, sir, I'm going to stay. I'm going to help. And he looks at his injured comrade who's lying next to him, and they have a smile. They share a smile. And that's it. It's so subtle.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
There's many little throwaway things like that. I mean, there's at one point they talk about the Germans booby trapping the dead, and this is the first two of the company that you lose, and it's just in passing, it's almost thrown away, and you think, oh my god. And then one of the other soldiers actually says, they do that, and he went, oh yeah, and then they just move on straight away. It's fantastic.
That's one of the couple of questionable military decisions I would argue are made, because it's like you find an enemy laid dead on the battlefield, and you know that they occasionally booby trap them. Don't start fiddling with it. Just leave it alone.
I took that as a British thing, saying,
oh yes,
our fallen comrade, even though he's the other side, we're going to bury him. If we're talking about things that don't really go anywhere, though, and little questionable military choices, is they make a big thing, because they mention it several times, and especially with Michael Medwin's character, of using anti-tank mines.
Yeah.
And what do they do? Because I don't remember seeing any tanks blow up from an anti-tank mine.
Put them in the wrong place.
Well,
behind the farm.
Maybe.
The tanks are over there, man.
It was just, I was like, hang on, they just spent 5 minutes showing us them burying all these mines, and did we see any of them work?
No.
Maybe they put them in upside down.
No, but poor old farmer.
Decimated the mole population.
Well, he did say he was used to using them on beaches, so maybe it's the earth. Maybe he did it wrong.
The other sort of big question I had, it's a 2-point question, right? So one of the key military strategies here is to send a man up the watchtower so he can look at and range the enemy position so they can shoot at it. That's the whole point of what they're doing. And he goes up there with his one canister of water that he then knocks over and slowly bakes in the sun. Then he comes down suffering from heat stroke. Now, one, I'm not sure having half a pint of water would have prevented the heat stroke in the first place. I'm not sure half a pint of water would counteract being in the hot Aldershot stroke Tunisian sun for 5 hours. But the other thing is that during the course of all of this, their position is given away. So they know that they're up there. So why not just, send him up another bottle on a bit of string? Why can you not just say, "Oh mate, I've lost my water. Can you send us another one?" Winch me up a canister. And plus as well, they're meant to be like in this sort of remote, sort of spearheaded outpost of the attack, where the enemy can't possibly know they're there. People keep rolling up in jeeps every 5 minutes to bring them a hot meal or some fresh orders. It's like, but you're supposed to be like undercover.
It's not the stealthiest operation.
Perhaps it's because every time they send any Germans over, they end up getting bayoneted anyway. So, I mean,
let's talk about that scene.
Oh yeah, let's please talk about that scene.
Go on, then, Kev. Give us your thoughts on the mass bayoneting of the Bosch.
I was not expecting so much swordplay in a film with guns and tanks, but then when they explain
losing the title, like that.
Oh no, yeah. Well, I suppose a bit of a giveaway, wasn't it? But when they actually start off, they say we've only got enough bullets for shooting a few of them. So try and keep it to as little as possible shooting wise.
It is a really sinister scene though, when they basically watch this platoon of enemy soldiers approach, and they wait for the right moment to just basically slip out from behind the shrubbery and knife them in the back. Basically, it's a pity they were awake.
I was blown away by how brutal that scene is. The stabbing slaughter, if you will, is more brutal in places than the shooting battle that goes on
massively
later.
More so, yeah.
Well, it's up close and personal, isn't it? That's why.
Kev, you could not have chosen a better term for it, because it really is so up close and personal. And as you say, we see guys getting bayoneted in the back. But, nothing compares to the guy getting shot in the face right in front of the camera.
Oh, yeah.
Later on in the film. I mean, blood streaming down his face, and he just screams and falls over. And I was just like, holy crap. It was, it's harsh. This film has some harsh moments.
No, it really does. I mean, there's a bit where a couple of the fellas in their trench just get vaporized.
On the flip side of this, though, we've got the German general when he rocks up at the end in his Jeep, and he stops the Jeep, and he's just surveying all the carnage around him, and you can see that he's just sort of going, well, you got to hand it to them. They did hold us off for 3 hours, which is all they needed to do. They just needed to buy time, and they've done it. And he's like looking around at his dad and going, my lot of rubbish, aren't they? They can't do anything. Yeah. I've given tanks everything.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure crickets are native to Tunisia, though. When he looks across and it's just a beep, 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 beep of the crickets in the ear, and it's like, are they from Tunisia?
Well, they're not native to Cobham Common either, so it don't really matter, does it?
It's just a metaphor.
I don't think it is. I really don't.
I like the fact that the whole sort of payoff of the plan was to bring the high-ranking German officer in there, so they could basically blow him up at the end, and when they knew where he was, and sort of launch everything at them. Just when they thought that they'd finally broken the resistance of the Allies, that he kind of fell into their final trap, I thought that was a pretty good payoff.
Yeah,
yes, that was cool.
I was fascinated as well by I'm trying to think of his name now. Kieran Moore's character, who was Captain Meade, wasn't he? Not Corporal,
That's
Captain
right.
Meade. Yeah, he's just sat there in that outpost, just no visual aids at all except a pair of binoculars, and he's able to pick out the coordinates. And I'm like, how do they do that? That's really impressive. Good. Yeah, but he was getting them pretty much bang on, wasn't he? He'd just go just a degree to the left, and then bang on. They were taking out tanks, and I'm like, wow, did they really do that?
Any last final points you want to make before we move on to summary and rating? Just anything you want to pick up on that we haven't yet? I've got something, but I'll save it for after you, chaps.
Well, actually, we've not mentioned that this is Michael Carrera's first line as a director, and he does a cracking job of it. There's some really good camera movement in here, especially during the battle sequences where it's going, it sort of dollies from left to right all the way through, and it's just going through the German lines as everybody's like getting picked off. That was quite good. But also, there's a weird choice at the beginning where they're just sort of descending on the farmhouse and they don't know whether it's actually being held by anybody or not. And rather than them have any soundtrack at all, it's all quiet. And it kind of takes any element of suspense out of it for me. You know, you're not told exactly how to feel on that. And it's a weird choice.
There's a shot I loved, and it's pretty much near the start of the film. And it's when they've been told they have to do this ridiculous mission. They have to go to the farm, and they've requested extra men. It's kind of been sort of like, you might get them, you might not. And then the camera pans down, and the entire troop of soldiers they have left walk past the camera, and all you see is their legs.
Yeah.
And it's just showing you how little men they have. Instead of that opening narration of saying, right, here's Private Archer, here's Private Bravo, whatever, you know, it's literally just showing the legs of these poor men.
Yeah.
And there's hardly any of them. We should point out, not that it's to be unexpected because of what the film is about, but again, a film with zero women. No women at all.
No.
We get a mention of an ex-wife who ran away, and to be fair, I don't blame her. He was away at war for a very long time.
It does seem a bit joyless as well, doesn't he? I mean, let's face it, he doesn't really crack any jokes, does he?
I know, but no woman can resist that cravat.
Do you know what? No, I've read a few online reviews of this film, and people are saying Leo again was not very good, and I've got to disagree with that. I thought he was really solid,
He
did the job well.
I agree.
You know, I think everyone in this, with what they were given, did really well.
Yeah.
The only exception would be the dying Germans, who in some of them were terrible, really, really bad.
Yeah, fair.
Well,
fair enough.
weren't they just soldiers anyway from the local base? They were just drafted in to fill out the numbers.
Yeah,
they're not even
were.
paid actors, so you know.
And Michael Caine
Apparently.
Maybe.
I looked very closely. You've no idea.
So did
frame
I.
by frame, and no, I cannot spot Michael Caine there. But
just for a little context, supposedly Michael Caine is an uncredited German soldier in this movie, and I looked at it. It's on his list of IMDb credits. But I couldn't.
I think he's just filling out his CV. You know, he's just being a bit of a crafty cockney.
That's Eric Bristow, isn't it? Anyway.
There's one for the kids.
Exactly.
Bullseye.
Well, I mentioned my favourite bit to you two ahead of recording, but I'm going to have to reiterate it here for the listener. Yes. There's a line towards the end of the film where they're dead deep in a battle. There's explosions and gunfire, and lots of people have already died. And the major is on the verge of evacuating the farm, and a soldier comes stumbling out of the smoke of war. And the major's like, John, what are you doing here? And he's like, I thought you might like some help. And he's the put of help is still coming out of his mouth as he gets blown up. And if it was meant to be funny, it would be comedy genius. But unfortunately, it's not meant to be funny. No. And he then gets blown up in a crater on the spot, offering no help other than being another casualty.
The special effect was really cool, though.
It was great. It was a tremendous on-screen death. Unfortunately, hilarious.
I reckon the special effect must have taken his eyebrows off. It was that close.
Well, there is a scene where Michael Medwin and one of the other characters are running across no man's land, and a bomb in inverted commas goes off next to him, and it's meant to put him in peril in the context of the film. The bomb leaves like a 3-foot crater, like an actual 3-foot crater. The special effect, and it's no wonder they felt like they probably all came back from the shooting with PTSD. I'm
never going to Aldershot again.
your ratings and a little bit of summary, not necessarily in that order. Smokey, let's have your sum up, please, and a rating out of 10.
I've really enjoyed this. I mean, I was unprepared of what Hammer were going to do with a war film. I mean, the closest we got, I suppose, start of X the Unknown with the soldiers doing their exercise, you know, looking for the radioactive.
Where's that bloke
Ripley?
legging it across no man's land or across the border, the East German border? What film was that?
That's
That was a bit
Breaking the Circle.
Well, less said about that.
It's got good lorry fire, if nothing else.
Exactly, it's a war lorry on fire.
And an exploding helicopter off screen. Yeah, no, never mind. Let's not talk about that. No, this did really surprise me, and I liked the human side of it. I loved the opening 40 minutes. I thought it was brilliant, and because I really like dialogue heavy films, I really do. The end battle though goes on too long,
20 minutes,
and it's a long 20 minutes. But this really surprised me, and I thought Leo Genn was great, and I thought Michael Medwin was great. The whole cast were really good, and it's the surprise of it that got me, and that's what I'm going to keep focusing on. So this gets an 8 out of 10 for me. I think this is a great war film.
I loved the opening roll call that sounds like it's predating Trumpton by about 2 decades. I thought that was a nice touch, and because it kind of introduces you to these people that you think you're going to get tight with, and then you realise that it's going to be like Black Hawk Down, and you're not going to recognise anybody from anybody because everybody's going to be running around getting shot at. So
you're all going to die.
Yeah, and most of them do, and it becomes, to me, like it's like the seeds of a 70s film, where 70s films just don't have happy endings, and this is one that is very grim indeed. You know, even down to your main leads by it. You know, I was expecting Kieran Moore to get out of it, and it doesn't. And Leo.
Spoilers.
But you know, it's one of those where it caught me completely off guard. I wasn't expecting there to be this much impact and this much pathos from it. I was expecting more of a fluff piece than I got. Put it that way. But some of it does kind of not hang too well. So I'm only going to give it a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm going to give it the same. I'm also going to give it a 7, which is, I enjoyed it more than I was maybe expecting to, and certainly I haven't watched it twice, definitely more the second time. It definitely feels like a main feature rather than a B movie, though, which is what Hammer would go in for.
Yeah,
obviously.
Agreed.
A conscious decision to start churning out things which were main features, and it definitely has that. I really wish I'd hated it, then I could have given it absolutely nothing. But keep with the Edwin Starr theme, but I couldn't do that. So
he's not letting it go.
I'm not. I've got more lyrics written down here, but I just can't shoehorn them in. Induction then instruction. I should have got. Good God, y'all. Just have a bit of peace, love, and understanding. So yeah, very good. Anyway, I'm going to end on a question to which I have the answer just for once. Do you know why the Allied troops referred to the Germans as the Boche?
Oh, I looked this up because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't something horrible. Yeah, and it isn't.
No, it's not.
But it's, oh God, I can't remember what it refers to now. It's going back through centuries. No, it's gone completely.
There's more than one. There's more than one.
There is.
Etymology, is that the word I'm looking for? But I can give you if you would like me to, I can give you what I've found out.
Yes, please.
Go for it.
It goes back to the fact that the French used to refer to the Belgians as tête de Boche, which means head of wood, because the Belgians use the term, I've got a head like wood for a hangover, and the French used to find that very amusing, so they used to call them effectively wooden heads. And over time, that became the Boche Allemands, which was basically the German simpletons or wooden-headed Germans, and that was shortened to Bosch over time. So it basically means simpletons or wooden heads, or I think there's another meaning as well, that it maybe sort of meant sort of rascal, and in the end it just meant German. So
Yeah,
Right.
that's the one that I was thinking of. Yeah.
come for the reviews, stay for the knowledge.
Somewhat of a surprise there. Well, give it a watch and see if you agree with us. As mentioned there during the roundtable, quite a lot is said, if not shown, about the use of anti-tank mines. This led me down a rather specific rabbit hole. Basically, I think we can all hazard a pretty good guess at just what an anti-tank mine is, right? A bunch of explosives in a hole in the ground that's designed to disable a tank or any other kind of military vehicle for that matter. But the Steel Bayonet did get me thinking. It's set during the Second World War. Obviously that means quite a bit of time had passed since World War I, and it's after the Spanish Civil War too. So the technology for the mines must have come on a bit. I was right. After the British introduced tanks in the First World War, the opposition really needed a way to stop these metal behemoths, and fast. The first mines were nothing more than a shed ton of buried explosives, with an upright fuse. By the end of the war, the German forces had devised a plan of row mining, essentially a way to take out as many tanks as possible. This tactic accounted for 15% of all US tank casualties. As time marches on, sadly, so does man's ability to kill each other, a rather sobering thought. In the Second World War, the Germans introduced something new. Previous mines would, more often than not, take out the tank's treads. Whilst that left the tank immobile, the crew and guns would still be in a state able to carry on with the battle. The introduction of a 2-foot fuse, unseen once the mine was buried, meant that once the mine was activated, the blast was much more effective. Not only for killing the crew and fully disabling the vehicle, but also for exploding all the ammunition inside. Bringing this in was a landmark moment and seemed to change tank warfare forever. Of course, now being in the modern era, things have gotten much more advanced. Mines are easier to lay, have fuses that can detonate the explosives after more than one triggering, to lure more of your enemy in, and some that can also be made of certain materials that can make them harder to be detectable. But that's not to say it's all doom and gloom for our armed forces chums. With advancing mine technology, that also means finding them and disposing of them has become easier to do as well. Armoured vehicles have gotten more sophisticated and stronger too. I guess what we always need to remember is the courage and fortitude it has always taken to be in any way involved in situations where these things are being used. For that, all those brave people will have our full respect. Interesting, if a little depressing. So, how about we move on to something that is definitely interesting, but certainly not depressing? Here with some lovely comic book capers is the constantly cheery Kev Moore.
War. What is it good for? Some awesome tunes for starters. There's the obvious Edwin Starr classic from 1970, Frankie Goes to Hollywood's Two Tribes, and of course Megadeth's Holy War's The Punishment Due, among literally hundreds of others. One that I didn't know was in any way connected to war until now was Sergeant Rock by English musical oddballs XTC. And this has taken me down a whole different rabbit hole. War comics. I remember picking up a couple of editions each week as a kid for tuppence from a used comic stall at the local market. There were all kinds of titles, but DC's Sergeant Rock sadly wasn't among them. There was, though, the usual Boyzone nonsense: Warlord, Commando, and the very homely Victor that always seemed to bang on about boats more than the others. Strange. These comics tend to deal with lots of up-close and personal daring-do and lots of flag-waving, and were pretty much the bread and butter for a few publishers through the years. Dundee's D.C. Thompson, who already conquered the British comic market with The Beano and the Dandy, were no slackers and kept their U-boat afloat with both Victor and Commando. This one, at its peak in the 1970s, was selling over 750,000 copies per issue. No mean feat for a lads mag at the time that features nobody's wives in it. And if you think it's a thing of the past, you'd be wrong. It was first published in 1961, the same year as Victor, and it's been going ever since, eventually hitting issue 5,000 in 2017. For some weird reason, Victor was vanquished and folded, not on the corners, in 1992. This was probably due to it being more boys' own adventure-style capers, rather than giving the Bosch a damn good thrashing before being home for kippers. The other big name in this kind of lads mags was Fleetway, who had their own version of the Victor called Valiant. It's almost like Transformers and Transmorphers, this. Valiant joined the battle in 1962 because we just couldn't get enough of winning World War II on a weekly basis. It was a lot less successful, and as its readers had evidently become punk rockers, it surrendered in 1976. Britain wasn't on its own when it came to banging on about World War II. I've already mentioned the superpowered Sergeant Rock for DC, who first went into battle in 1959 and is still milling about because nobody ever dies in comics. I mean, anyone remember that Death of Superman fiasco? At one point, Arnold Schwarzenegger was going to star in a Sergeant Rock film after being awesome as John Matrix in Commando. The film, not the comic book I've just been on about. Probably the biggest one out of the lot has to be G.I. Joe. There's been something of a phenomenon since 1942, and since he's left World War II behind him in favour of futuristic silliness, it doesn't look like he's going anywhere soon. All of these comics serve to bang the drum, wave the flag, and keep the home fires burning, no matter what conflicts may be flaring up. And some would blatantly ignore modern-day conflicts where things weren't working out as well as the propagandists had hoped, but spare a thought for the ingenious Army Motors magazine in the US that realised the popularity of comics in 1951 and began issuing the Preventative Maintenance Monthly. This was actually a services technical manual in an adapted comic book form, printed on several different army bases along the way, and eventually going on to have its own recurring characters that would evolve over the decades. So, war may be good for comic books too. But don't forget, people's poet George O'Dowd once said, War is stupid, and people are stupid, and love means nothing in some strange quarters. Makes you think, right?
Thank you, Kev. Absolutely wonderful. Well, it's that time once again, my friends. We are almost at the end of another episode. Don't forget to check out our link tree in the show notes for all your needs, like our socials and our brand new online merch store. And of course, join us next time, where we return to be in the company of Brian Donlevy and Sid James in Quatermass 2. I would just like to close out on something of a personal note, if you'll indulge me. Some of you noticed over the last episode and with my other shows as well that we've been a little quiet lately. That's down to the fact that in between the last episode and the one before, my dad passed away. So it's been an incredibly tricky time for me personally. And so podcasting has had to take a little bit of a back seat. I need to thank Ben and Kev for really taking on everything, and especially in the last episode, and giving me as much time as I need. And that's why there was no segment of mine in the last episode, because I just didn't have the time or the inclination, to be fair. But why bring it up here, I think, is an important question. And it's to say that my dad was one of you. He was a big fan of mine, of what I do on the podcast, and would listen to them daily on a loop, all 3 shows. He'd listen to them at night time, and then as soon as he woke up in the morning as well, which was an incredibly touching thing over the last few years. And it gave us something to talk about. Not that we ever ran out of things, but it was just nice to have something else. And the last film we watched together a few months back was a Hammer film. The Return of the Saint was on the TV, so we watched that, which will always be a nice memory to have. But he adored the shows. He adored Ben and Kev and Adam, and he would constantly ask me after them and how they were. And he was a special guy, and he was very proud of what I do, more so than I am. Will always be. Yeah, he was very proud. So I just wanted to have a brief thing here to say, yeah, he was a special guy, and he was one of you. He was a fan, and he listened to us every day, and I'm going to miss him. So I hope you'll do me a favour of at some point just raising whatever your poison is to my old man, Terry, because it's damn sad. Thank you. So, my friends, until next time, from me, Smokey.
From me, Ben Tillison.
And from me, Kev Moore.
Take good care of yourselves, and tell your nearest and dearest that you love them. But we will be back very soon to welcome you here through the doors of the House of Hammer.